Hi, third graders, and happy Wazoo Wednesday. This is the second Making Meaning lesson of this week, which is, by the way, copyrighted by the Center for the Collaborative Classroom. Today we'll be determining important ideas of hermit crabs.
All right, readers, today your job is to pay attention to these student learning targets. They're the same as earlier in the week. We're going to be hearing and discussing an expository nonfiction text. We'll be identifying what you learn from the text. We'll be thinking about important ideas in text, and we'll be writing about those today. Also, you'll be making inferences to understand the text. Read independently for 25 minutes after you're done writing and posting it onto Seesaw. And of course, you need to be giving reasons for your thinking. The reason I think this is, now again, with our distance learning adjustments, you have to maybe try to talk to something or someone or somewhere that you can maybe talk about what you are going to write about today. So when I say turn to your partner, that's a good time to pause the video and think about what you want to say. And even say it, even if it makes you feel kind of silly. I know, I'm here talking to my computer right now all by myself, and I feel a little weird. Okay, readers, let's review what we've learned so far in this past week or two. We've learned about different animals and plants from the excerpts from Lifetimes by David L. Rice. And in that we learned about army ants, elephants, and the saguaro cactus. So, what is something important you learned about army ants? Let me wheel in my virtual classroom here, and here are my friends Shaggy and Scooby Doo. So what's something you learned about army ants? Shaggy?
Well, like, army ants work together and eat anything and everything in their way.
Interesting. Very cool. So what is something you learned about elephants? Scooby?
Elephants make a trumpeting call to other elephants with their trunks.
Interesting. Cool. So, what was that? Batman? Is Batman here? What's something you learned about saguaro cactuses, Batman?
Well, I've been watching all these lessons this past week or two, and the other day I learned that the saguaro cactus can hold up to 250 gallons of water.
Wow, thank you, Batman, for sneaking in there and sabotaging our lesson. Okay, readers, we are now going to introduce the topic of hermit crabs. Again, this comes from the Lifetimes book by David L. Rice. So now, readers, what do you think you know about hermit crabs?
Scooby-Doo? Hermit crabs live in rabbit.
I'm sorry, Scooby, can you repeat that, please?
Rory, hermit crabs live in borrowed shells.
Interesting. Yes, Shaggy, we'd like to add something to that.
Zoink, Scoop. Hermit crabs live on land and in water.
Okay, readers, we're now going to read aloud and think about the information we learned from in this article about hermit crabs. It's called "A Lifetime for a Hermit Crab is About 5 Years." And I've included some suggested vocabulary that you might need to double check on, such as motorhomes, sea anemone, recycle, piggybacking. These are our words that are going to come across here that might help you as you read. So think about what you are learning from the text as I read this paragraph out loud. A lifetime for a hermit crab is about 5 years. Hermit crabs are very good at taking action to make their lives better. Nature doesn't give them a shell for protection, so they find shells that are empty and recycle them. They use these shells like motorhomes until the crabs get too big for them. Then they move into larger shells. Another neat trick of the hermit crab is to put a sea anemone on top of its shell. The poisonous arms of the anemone keep the octopus or squid from eating the crab for dinner. Since sea anemones can't move around very well by themselves, piggybacking on the crab is a special treat that allows them to find food as the crab moves along. So thinking about that, readers, think about what you've learned from this text about hermit crabs so far. What are some interesting things you learned about hermit crabs? Turn to your partner.
Well, I learned that hermit crabs don't, have a natural shell, so they, recycle shells that are empty. Zoinks, I wonder how many shells they go through in a lifetime.
I have an inference. It is interesting that hermit crabs rely on other animals for its shell, and other animals, like sea anemones, rely on the hermit crab to get around. Wow.
All right, now it's time to reread and then write about an important idea from this article. So when I read this a second time, I want you to think about what seems the most important to understand and remember. A lifetime for a hermit crab is about 5 years. Hermit crabs are very good at taking action to make their lives better. Nature doesn't give them a shell for protection, so they find shells that are empty and recycle them. They use these shells like motorhomes until the crabs get too big for them. Then they move into larger shells. Another neat trick of the hermit crab is to put a sea anemone on top of its shell. The poisonous arms of the anemone keep the octopus or squid from eating the crab for dinner. Since sea anemones can't move around very well by themselves, piggybacking on the crab is a special treat that allows them to find food as the crab moves along. Okay, readers, now I want you to think about what is the most important to understand and remember from this passage about hermit crabs. So you're going to be thinking about that and practicing writing about that. So now, if you were to write about what you think is the most important thing about hermit crabs, these little sentence prompts from Scooby and Shaggy can help you. An important thing to remember about hermit crabs is, and the reason I think this is, sorry, I didn't do the voices just then. So now, for Think, Pair, Write in I.D.R. today, I want you to think about the most important thing to understand and remember about the passage about hermit crabs, and then write your ideas. So before you do your I.D.R. today, go back to Seesaw and write to your teacher about what you think is the most important thing to remember about hermit crabs.
Be sure to write in complete sentences. Zoinks!
Wait, what's that? Kylo? Kylo Ren? What are you doing here?
Next week, Ben Solo and I will hear some fables and start thinking about theme.
Ooh.
Off to your right. It's time to read for 25 minutes. Off you go.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out this other video by Mr. T. It's the second one about teaching you some exercises that you can do to keep yourself fit and active during quarantine. Next week, I'll be learning about the concept of theme with Ben Solo and Kylo Ren. They're one and the same. Anyway, also, go ahead and check out my YouTube videos when I'm reading Ramona A. Quimby, age 8. And I'll be trying to add more to that this week. See you later.